Do you ever say to yourself, oh my God, I cannot remember the word. I wanted to say something, but I was fumbling. And most of you do that. And this question right here, I can't remember words when I actually need them. This is the literal problem that everybody faces. You go into a meeting, you don't know what to say. But don't worry, I believe that a lot of you probably do not have the right technique to remember a word, and you don't know what to do with the remembered word. And that is why you are unable to get the right word. In today's lesson, I'm going to show you the best techniques to memorize vocabulary and how to use them in real conversations. Believe me, I have used this technique, in fact, a lot of these techniques, and today I never fall at a loss for words. So stay with me until the end, because I can promise you that if you stick with these basic techniques, very simple techniques, you will learn how to remember words and use them in real conversations. So we are going to start with mnemonics. Don't get scared of the word. It looks a little difficult, but I promise it's very easy. By the way, the M is silent, so you simply say mnemonics. It's not mnemonics, but mnemonics. Anyway, what is it? It is a mental shortcut to help you remember a complex concept. Now, what happens is that when you are learning a new word, you learn by looking at an image. You know, when we were growing up as children, we always were given an image and we associated an image with the word. Guess what? Till today, we actually learn the same way, because we're human after all, right? Even though we grow up, our learning stays the same. So, how do I associate a mental image with my word? Let's have a look. Let's assume that you are learning a word called insight, okay? But it's difficult for you to memorize this word. What would you do? This is what you must do. Use mnemonics by breaking up this word into two parts. Now the word in. What is the picture that gets evoked in your mind with the word in? What do you think? A box like this, because in refers to something which is enclosed, inside, right? So in the box. So I would look at a picture of something which is enclosed from the four sides, and I'm looking inside of it. And the word sight. Sight means to see. So we are looking at something. So therefore, if you want to understand the word insight, you have a mental image of something inside, which means enclosed by something, and you are looking at something inside. In other words, it tells you that it is an act of looking at something at a very deep level. So when you want to see something at a very deep level, understand something in an in-depth way, that is called insight. So for example, I would say, I have insight about the topic of phonology because I understand that at a very deep level, right? So insight is to understand something, to see something at a very deep level on the inside. So in this way, even though you may not have known the word by looking at it, by simply breaking up the word into two parts and getting a mental image of each part of the word, you can guess what the meaning could be and remember the word through those associated meanings with the mental image and start using them. So that was mnemonics, the first vocabulary memorization technique. Now I'm going to show you another very interesting technique. Stay with me. The next one is called word association. Okay, so what does this really mean? Don't worry about the big words. I'll tell you what it means. You need to look for the meaning of words within a phrase. Now, sometimes you have a phrase. It could be an idiom, it could be a phrasal verb, it could be just an expression. And you're like, oh my God, what does this mean? Or can I even use it in this conversation? Don't worry. What do you have to do? You've got to look for the meaning of the word inside of that phrase and start guessing. What does that mean? So, if I have a phrase like, give the green signal, now you know that the green signal refers to saying yes. When you're at the traffic light, At the traffic signal, what happens? When the green signal is on, it basically means that you can go. You have permission. So this idiom or this phrase basically means to go, or to go ahead with something, to get permission to go ahead with something. So word association is basically looking for obvious indicators of word meanings. Okay? If you want to remember a word, remember one thing, that if you look at a word and if you can guess the meaning of the word from the words inside of that phrase, that will really help you remember and become good at guessing. Okay? A person who reads vocabulary eventually becomes good at vocabulary. Why? Because they end up associating words through the meaning of words in a phrase that they've learned. Or they use mnemonics like we saw before. Let me show you another example of word association. There is a phrase called for eternity. Now, if I want to use for eternity, how do I use it? Let's have a look. What could it possibly mean? The word eternity comes from the word eternal, right? Eternity, eternal kind of sounds similar. Well, it does, right? So what does eternal mean? It means something that is forever, timeless, till the end of time. So what does that really mean? It means a long time. So sometimes when you are sarcastic, what do you say? You say, hey, I'm not going to stand here for eternity. It basically means I am not going to stand here for a long time. Okay, so eternity, this is a great phrase to use, but if you don't know what it means, or if you want to use it but you are not sure whether you're using it correctly, try guessing the word association, which is the meaning of the word inside of this phrase. So eternal is the word that is inside the phrase, which gives you a clue to the actual meaning. Okay, all right then, let's look at some more techniques. The next one is borrowed meaning across languages. Now let me tell you that English is a language which has borrowed words from other languages, right? You don't know that? Let me show you how. This is a very important word, in fact a very common word these days, guru. Okay, so guru is actually a Sanskrit word. It's not an English word, but now it is part of the English dictionary. Now, if you want to use this word, but you don't know what it means, you can kind of go back to its origin, its Sanskrit origin. What does it mean? It talks about a person. Guru in Sanskrit means a person who everyone looks up to. So therefore, logically, a person who everyone looks up to would be somebody who knows more than you. Who is that? A teacher, right? So that's a guru. Okay, so a guru is a person who everyone knows, who everyone looks up to, who is obviously a teacher or an expert at something. But then again, we have another example, library. Okay, now library is an English word, but again, it was borrowed from another language. It was borrowed from Spanish, right? So what does library mean? The word library comes from the word libro, which basically means a book. And library essentially means a collection of books, right? So we go to the library. Why? Because we read libros, we read books, all right? All right then, so there are many words like that. If you look at the dictionary, go back to the origin, it will help you really remember the words and get the concept clear in your mind. But then, once you've done those techniques, there's something more that you need to do. It's not enough to just memorize. Now you've got to start using words in context. What do I mean by that? Number one, once you have understood the memorization techniques, make a list of high-frequency words. What are high-frequency words? Words that you use very frequently. These would be like the top 80% of the words that you use every single day. Okay? Now, why do you do that? You have to do that because you need to make sentences with these words. Okay? Just because you know a word, you know a meaning, do you think you're going to remember it? I don't think so. I've got many students who tell me that they know the word, they know the meaning, but they do not remember it when they have to, in a meeting, in a conversation. Why? Because they have not done this. They don't know how to use words in context. So learn the word, learn to remember it with mnemonics and word associations and, the knowing it from the other languages, but then you've got to start using it in context, which means make a list of those high frequency words, use them in a sentence, and then prepare those sentences for everyday situations, which means after making a sentence, ask yourself, can I use it today in a certain situation? For example, give the green signal. Now, I might call my boss and say to him, hey, I need to send this report. Why don't you give me the green signal? So what have I done here? I've actually taken a high frequency phrase. I would call it a high frequency phrase because it's a phrase with many words. I have made a sentence with it. But now I have actively sought out an opportunity to use it. So I have gone ahead and immediately used it in real time, in a real conversation with my boss, right? So learn the words, memorize the words, but then also use those words in context, okay? But then, don't just stop there. Like I said, it's important to bring vocabulary to life, which means you need to use the words in real conversations. Now, this is the difficult part, and this is where people stop, okay? A lot of people feel like if they go ahead and say something, a new word, they might sound funny, they might sound weird. Well, don't stop there, because this is where you break that problem. That problem goes away when you go ahead and take that step of faith and do the right thing, which is use it in a real conversation. And of course, you need to keep a vocabulary tracker. Okay, so just like you progress you monitor your progress when you're doing anything, whether it is watching your weight, watching how healthy you are, your progress, your at work, your performance. Similarly, keep a vocabulary tracker. Make a list of words and say, have I used these new words in this week or in this month? And you know if you have or not. So be honest with yourself by keeping a vocabulary tracker, which makes you accountable to yourself. Okay? And of course, like I said, be consistent. Okay? Consistency is key. When you are learning language, you will not learn all words in one day or maybe even in a month. But if you are consistent, let's say across 6 months, 7 months, you will see a great difference. A difference where you do not feel like you are fumbling for words, you don't know what to say. Because now the words will organically start flowing out in your conversations. Why? Because eventually you are going to find continual opportunities to use these new words. Okay? So these are the different techniques to memorize vocabulary and to use the newly learned words. I can guarantee that if you do this, your goal to be really fluent in English is not going to be very far away. So keep learning, keep practicing, and tell me which vocabulary technique you loved and which one you think is worth using. I'll see you soon. Take care and have a lovely day. Bye.